Hello, everyone. My name is Kyle Davis, and we're going to be talking a little bit today about some of the industry trends around production, the lighting industry in general, and Luminaire technology specifically. Thank you all guys for joining us today. Thankfully, we have the right guest to help us talk through all of these topics because we here have Martin Palmer, who is the senior product manager for Luminaires at Vari-Lite and Strand. Good morning, Martin.
Good morning, Kyle. Good morning,
Uh,
guys.
yeah, thanks for having us here. For those of you that don't know Martin, I wanted to start by letting him introduce himself. So, Martin, could you introduce yourself a little bit? For those that don't know you, you're pretty known quantity in the industry, I think, for a lot of people, but not everybody. So, for those that don't, could you introduce yourself, share a little bit about your background, and how you got started in the industry?
Of course, Kyle. Hey, everybody. For those who don't know me, I'm Martin Palmer, and I'm the product manager here at Vari-Lite and Strand for all Luminaires. I can easily say that I've grown up in this entertainment industry. This year marks my 30th year in the entertainment industry. 10 of those early years it was just a hobby, but in the last 20 it's been my full-time career, after combining what was a hobby with my early career as an electrical engineer. I started my journey like most people listening. I was involved in my school performances. I was then actually a DJ through the 90s and early 2000s. My career over the last 20 years has taken me around the world. I think to nearly every continent, but not quite every country yet. I'm still working on that. And I've developed, professionally as an engineer through to sales, project management, to a directorship, and now to a product manager, or as I like to say, the chief officer of saying no, and the person who gets to deliver the bad news to the person that can sack me on a regular basis. But I do really enjoy what I do. Who else can be the custodian of two of the industry's most prestigious brands of portfolios of lighting fixtures? I don't know many other brands that can boast, being around for over 100 years, or have an awards cabinet that includes a couple of Emmys that sits in our reception. During my time in this industry, I've been really lucky to have worked with, for, and against some of the best rental, systems integrations, and sales companies in the industry. I was once lucky a few years ago to be assigned by my then employer to work alongside one of the original pioneering inventors that helped shape the shape the way we use LEDs in our industry. And that's where I first started my road as a product manager. I can really say, along with the great companies, I've also met some amazing, creative, and inspirational people. The most you could ever want to wish to meet. I'm really lucky to be able to call a lot of them my friends. The entertainment industry really is one big family, and even in these most trying times, I see constant support for each other across the entire industry, and we come together to make the best of the bad situation.
Well, thank you for that, Martin. Really appreciate you giving some of your background and helping us kind of understand that a little better. You've clearly been in the industry a long time. I will spare the snarky comments around that, but a long time. So on the plus side of that, that means that you've seen a lot of the changes that have gone on in the lighting industry. And so how has it changed from back when you were like a DJ or just starting out to now? How have the things shifted and changed?
Yeah, so when I first started, Kyle, especially in those early days, LEDs were nowhere to be seen except they were the indicators on some of the front of the lighting desks, and dimmers, to show whether the channel was on or not. Everything was still very much, and had been as it had for the last 10 years previously, mainly tungsten lamps fixtures. Gels was really the only medium for changing color. There was the occasional high frequency phosphor converted fluorescent tubes in some of the larger venues and studios, or those specialist rental houses. And of course, there were discharge lamps, and they were readily available in moving lights. Although moving lights were being used in a lot of productions, they were still really, for the top tier productions and used in conjunction with more traditional sources. Most of the times it was pretty limited outside those top productions to actually even see moving lights to start off with. I think really, it was around 2002 when I started to see a big change. the first really mainstream LED pixel-based power and strip fixtures started to appear in the market that were truly usable as a production piece. We saw them quickly being adopted by lighting designers as a creative medium, as well as an ecologically friendly light solution. I can say for sure, LED has been a huge disruption to this industry. Some good, some not so good. It goes far beyond what it opened up in terms of creativity. It also changed the competitive landscape. This new technology brought a wider range of manufacturing companies to the industry. We've seen a rise in new sales companies, these companies that don't have their own factories. They have no real R&D department in the traditional sense. It's a completely new business model. And where there is perceived to be no true innovation or design, only evolution on existing platforms. And the rise of these companies changed the value of fixtures, especially in the mid-pro market, in the entry-level markets. For us as a company, we're having to adapt our portfolio and offerings to meet these new market requirements and the expectations. For example, the new VL 800 series luminaires, are built and designed with the DNA of Vari-Lite inside them, as we say, but we've managed those compromises and limitations so they still offer great value for money and a high return on investment for our rental partners, but also at an attractive and entry price for that wider fixed installation market. So we've opened our portfolio a lot wider now to meet the market demands and the changing market.
Right. Wow. So definitely, a lot of changes in a what's, I guess, a relatively short amount of time, realistically speaking. And so now you spoke a lot about LEDs in particular, and I know that LEDs have changed the industry. We all know that. We've heard about this, but what does that really mean, like functionally, beyond just needing a new lamp? What's the actual impact to the way luminaires work and how you use them in the market space?
You're right there, Kyle. It's more than just needing to buy a new lamp in these fixtures, or not needing to buy a new lamp, we should say, as regular as we used to. But originally, and still one of the key benefits of using LEDs is, it's lower energy consumption. It's far more ecologically friendly than our traditional lamp sources. But it's really no secret the first LED fixtures that were just RGB color mixing, they were great, giving designers the ability to create washes and quickly and effectively, but they rarely matched in color. They also added these new visual dynamic looks to the stage and the creative designs, which in turn I think has paved the way for pixel mapping and more video use in in our applications. What those LED products, though, these early fixtures, what they weren't very good at lending themselves to is being a key light. They let depth and bandwidth of color. They just didn't really look real. I recall very early on in my first experience of LED fixtures, and I smile now as I talk about it because I still remember this person doing it. I was doing a demonstration to a very prestigious theatrical based lighting designer. And he's a lovely guy, but he was a little bit direct and blunt with me. And I recall him quite bluntly telling me, he goes, "Yes, I can see that your RGB fixture may well be able to achieve 13 million colors." That's what we all said back then. But not one of those is anywhere near the tone of white I actually need to light the show. These LEDs won't last. They are just a fad. But they have lasted, and we've seen a plethora of wider color mixing sources coming to the market over the years. Some are being tailored for applications. They use RGBW, RGBA, RGB lime, depending on the tones of color you're looking for. However, with all those extra added, even with all those extra added colors, the true quality of light and even a stated higher CRI, some of these are pretty poor in most cases. Most of these current offerings still have to compromise over, compromising quality to get the output. And that's really that balance. So, for us, this is why, on our new premium fixtures, like the VL5 LED wash, which is sort of sat this side of me, we've gone down the road of using this new LED color system. So we've taken a wider spectrum. We're using 6 LED colors in the engine, which is a red, green, blue, amber, lime, and cyan. This not only gives consistent high CRI when matching, whites along the black body curve. These full color fixtures also offer the users the widest possible color spectrum, where you no longer have to choose whether or not you're using a high or low base color temperature unit, whether you've got a vivid or a pastel color palette. These or even fixtures that have been tuned just so they do reds and blue tones, so fire and water sort of tones of color. As you expect, with the legacy of the Strand behind us as well, whereas those theatrical brands of Luminaires, we've done far more as well than just focusing on our full color mixing fixtures in this range and using this RGB amber lime science system. We've also worked on creating dedicated tunable white output fixtures, and we've ensured that we're not just compromising the color temperature range versus CRI versus output. Our new tunable white fixtures have specifically been designed with LED engines that maintain a CRI above 96 throughout their entire color temperature range, as well as keeping market leading outputs to really start to, drive this new technology into the world where it becomes so easily adopted for every application.
You mentioned tunable white. I haven't seen that yet. I assume you can't tell me anything about that. I assume the answer is no on that.
At the moment, no, but you will start seeing these fixtures coming very, very soon. Very soon, in fact.
All right. I had one of these calls with Paul on the control side recently. Tried to get something out of him. I couldn't get anything out of him either. These product managers, I tell you. Anyway, but so moving beyond that, you mentioned a lot about color, though. You mentioned color both in regards to color rendering and CRI and all that sort of thing, as well as quality of light, that kind of thing, as well as like color mixing and a broader range of colors. And so that's clearly an important aspect of LEDs and how LEDs have changed things. But how else has LEDs impacted luminaires? Because is it just the color, and then, or is there more than that even?
No, it's far more than that, Carl. Far more than that. It's really when these. I always remember when the first LEDs started appearing, everyone was, wow, there's no heat. These don't get hot. Wow. Yeah. How wrong were we? Admittedly, most of these fixtures, they don't radiate much heat, like you would felt from a lamp into the beam. But in fact, I remember the Plaza Trade Show because of this. Everybody had moved across to LEDs one year, so the majority of all the stands were lit with LEDs, and the stand felt really cold. The whole venue felt cold just because we didn't have the heat radiated off of those lamps. But the LEDs themselves still need to dissipate a large amount of heat. The rear side of the LED die chip, which is usually it's tiny, but this is usually has to be mounted to a huge chunk of aluminium, a heat sink as we call it. Some of these are with or without liquid cooling on top of that, and then we have to force air across that to keep it cool. So there might not be much heat coming down the front of the lights, coming from the light source itself, or radiated as part of the output. However, there is a lot of heat management that's required in these LEDs in a very different way to what we're used to. So now this cooling method, really isn't ideal. And as a product manager, I completely understand the desirability for fixtures, especially from theatrical and studio applications, to be silent with no fans. But building LED fixtures that rely solely on a heatsink with no forced air cooling, with current technologies, there is always going to be, again, one of these big compromises. That's going to be regarding the size of the fixture and the maximum output. As we've already seen, these fixtures either become very big and have a very limited output, very barely comparable to fixtures that are perceived actually as half their size. So there is a big compromise there. But for us, we're trying to minimize this compromise. And we found in most of our fixtures, and they need to run quiet. We've added new control parameters to give programmers and designers the ability to balance that fan speed that has to be there, which gives you resulting noise levels and the output levels they need. So we allow people either to use presets to set a studio standard or whisper mode in a fixture, for example, so that reduces the output and noise level so they can balance into their environment. And we've also gone beyond that. We also offer what we call the variable fan channel. So this allows the actual programmer to scene by scene, cue by cue, reprogram that light's maximum output level, so where the fans are going to spin at their very most, to really fine tune it for what they actually need. So it gives them a greater flexibility to suit the shows and the environments they're working in. So it keeps it really, really relevant. And they can boost the output if they have a noisy scene, they can reduce the output if they have a quieter scene. On top of that, you also have the option in every one of our fixtures, no matter which product, or most of our newer fixtures, I should say, to have the fans spinning at a constant rate, so that noise level will always remain constant. Or it can be set to auto, where the fans reduce when the cooling is not required. So both of these modes are relevant. Some designers and architectural uses, planners for shows and stage managers, they're quite happy that there is a fan noise, they manage it, or they want the fans to just shut down. So it gives the ability for people to set these lights up how they want to use it. And again, all of these functions are available across the majority of our products, both in Strands and Vari-Lite fixtures.
All right. So when we talk about fan noise, that's it. I know it is not necessarily a concern, obviously, for like a rock concert, but like you say, it's a big concern for theatrical and television, right?
Absolutely.
And so when you television specifically, obviously noise is a concern, but there's also a whole nother set of concerns beyond the fan noise, and that's the camera itself, because that's a whole nother technology that's also dependent on light. Just like we do light, but the camera itself is dependent on light. That's how it functions. I think that's important because there's a lot of more intersections of video and performance lighting that you see now. These seems to me, whether that's theatrical productions that are being filmed now to more production style events for TV, like so you think you can dance and whatever. Not to mention, even on the live event side of things, you have a lot more IMAG and that kind of thing. What are some of the challenges that having all of this video and having these cameras that are viewing, the production lighting, what are some challenges that's presenting on the Luminaire side, and how can Luminaire technology be advanced to address some of these challenges and to address, maybe even to sort of do new special things for shows that are being filmed?
I mean, that's a great thing, Carl, with these LED sources, and the drivers, that we design and we use in all our new LED fixtures. You're absolutely right. The camera doesn't see like the eye does, so they're very susceptible to picking up refresh rates and flicker. So all of our fixtures are designed to allow users to change that LED refresh rate. And that can be adjusted for filming. And that's a really important function that we include. It's not just because our default refresh rate could actually be seen as a flicker on the camera, and likely to be, causing an issue. It's actually because, it gives the programmers and the lighting directors the ability to match our fixture refresh rate to other fixtures in their rig. And the biggest culprit on this, is to match it to the worst light that's causing the biggest flicker, and then the cameras can be adjusted to compensate. The camera can't see like the human eye does, so it can't compensate for multiple frequencies at the same time. So you have to get everything really close and then change your the shutter angle and everything to actually compensate for those flickers. So that's why we add that in. And on top of this, refresh rates and film friendly controls, we've also extended our these camera friendly functions a lot further, especially in these new fixtures that are going to use the RGB amber lime color system. We have a new mode called smart color control, and one of the attributes there gives those programmers the ability to adjust the green and magenta balance independently of the color in CTO. So a show can be lit for day-to-day productional use. And then for the times when it actually needs to go out on film and the cameras are there, and you know the camera director or the lighting director is saying that it's all looking a little green, guys, on camera, which, you know, it's relative that cameras see green a lot, and blues a lot brighter than they do other colors. You know, we can go in and, you know, the programmers that can go in and rebalance the light very simply without changing anything else in the fixture, and just update their cues, and it gives that really, you know, good flexibility and proper use of these fixtures, so you can jump between a filmed show and a non-film show very, very quickly and easily without actually, you know, destroying what the heart of the show was supposed to be as the lighting designer, you know, as the lighting director and programmer wanted it to be.
Wow, that's really cool. Now, you know, not to be sort of Debbie Downer here, but like, I love hearing about all these cool features that we add into fixtures, you know, and we've talked about a lot of them, from, you know, the color, you know, this, you know, bigger color engines, to the fan controls, to the TV filters, to all these things, and all that's great, but that also is something else to control, right? That's another thing. So how do you address that and still make it sure that there's not a bunch more work for the programmer? How do you balance that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you're right, Carl. It is a lot more work at times for the programmers. Things are getting more complicated, you know, as these fixtures have started, you know, to offer more and more attributes, especially, you know, when it comes to color mixing. You know, we've been working really hard to try and make the programmer's life a lot easier. We're very much aware that time is money, and both are very limited in modern productions, as, you know, the accountants have taken over that world. You know, for example, one of the things we've done in our 6-colored fixture is offer this completely new operating mode, as I was just talking about, called Smart Color. So here we can remove, you know, completely just trying to update those colors. So the way the color control works now is, so we can take those 6 colors and actually just manipulate them via CMY values. You know, so this allows those users to set a base CTO that they wish to work with. You know, so for example, the fixtures, you know, the idea is to default them at 3200 degrees Kelvin. If you command line enter on any console, you know, fixture 1 on at 100%, the fixture comes on like a traditional tungsten light source would at, you know, 100% in a CTO of white. So, you know, it at 3200 degrees Kelvin, so it feels the same way as a traditional luminaire. The programmers can then simply mix color using a familiar CYM control interface. Yeah, and they need to know that they're, and be confident that they're not missing out on any aspects of the color spectrum, you know, that's possible from these fixtures. You know, we've got such a, you know, wide achievable spectrum here using those 6 colors, that what we're doing is the fixture, the smart control, integral to the fixture, is taking control of those 6 colors and doing all the calculations and ensuring that, you know, the fixture is outputting the maximum power at all times, as well as, you know, remaining consistent. You know, so unlike a console where you can do this virtually on most consoles, you can put it in a CMY mode no matter what light you've got plugged into it. If you've got a multicolored source, with very few exceptions, it only ever mixes off the RGB value, you know, RGB LEDs, because it doesn't actually know what the other colors are or what to do with them. So our new controls, you know, the fixture inside, the controls inside the fixture takes care of all those calculations on which LEDs should be on, what the level, which means, you know, you maintain that maximum output all the time with those mixed colors. You know, and this goes for, say, when using a color picker. So using a console's generic color picker, again, when you click on a filter, the light takes care of what all the 6 LEDs are doing. It's just looking at the X and Y coordinates created from the CMY chart, and it then produces the color with the maximum output. And, you know, and there's other benefits here. It means that when you're fading between colors, you always remain consistent. You never suddenly see colors appearing that you weren't quite expecting to be in that color fade. You know, and even if you change your color temperature, like you would, you know, in a, say, a moving light with a discharge lamp or a white light source, and you have a variable CTO and you mix a color and you then move the CTO in that color shifts, our system still allows that to happen. So if you mix a, you know, a very pale blue and decide that, you know, oh, it's not quite as warm as I was expecting it to be, or as cold as I can expect it to be, you can adjust your color temperature of your actual base source independent of that, so it can lighten it up or cool it down, like if though you were changing the lamp or, you know, changing a CTO on a mechanical system. Yeah, on top of these features, we've also added a load of other controls that makes life easier around the job site. Some of these were rolled in as far back as the VL4000, you know, such as a remote status check command. So this allows the programmers to send a command to all the fixtures, or all the Vari-Lite fixtures up in a rig, you know, once it's all flown and once it's powered up, and each of the fixtures gives a clear indication by illuminating its UI screen to a bright green color that their fixture is healthy and there's no errors. If there's any errors, it starts flashing red. So, you know, this is a really simple but effective check that we can do on fixtures, especially if your rig's in for a few days, so it's not necessarily just being built that day and the lights have been hanging there. You can really just go in, press this, someone can easily look up, see the screens, any red ones, you know you've got an error before you even start checking whether the lights functions are working. You know, all our new linear fixtures, they have the ability to swap their pixel direction, you know, via the DMX control channel. Yeah, that's really, really helpful, you know, because it saves manpower on site. What happens is, you know, you always get that, you know, member of crew who wasn't quite listening when we said hang them this way up, and one of them's upside down, and as the programmer you write a lovely chase which is like a cascading waterfall, and you find 3 of the lights are going up, not down. So here you can just go into the control channel and flip that so they work in the opposite direction, so 12 to 1 rather than 1 to 12, for example. Yeah, we've even thought about this on the new VL5 LED wash, you know, especially when in those festival locations, where people turn up and it's been, you know, they've programmed their show with the front of the fixture patched as a single pixel, but the person before them on the tour has had that fixture running with full pixel mapping capabilities. You know, the fixture via a DMX control functions, so nobody has to go to the light, nobody even needs to, you know, interrupt the stream with an RDM signal. You can go to the control channel and just switch, literally flick a switch, and it now links all those pixels, if it's been patched to 16 pixels, to number 1. So it's no different to changing the mode. The difference is it doesn't change the DMX map. It doesn't change its actual, you know, physical footprint. You don't have to go up to the fixture. We don't even have to access by RDM. You know, it's a really simple control, just actioned by the fixture's control channel, so it can just fire out over DMX. It doesn't matter how many nodes or gateways or anything are in between. It works in the same way as though you were recalling a light. So yeah, that's a really simple thing we've added, but actually adds real value and can save a lot of time on site and a lot of confusion.
Wow, that's cool. I like hearing about all the different features that you've added to make things easier, because that seems important to me, because Luminaires and the entertainment Luminaires have become somewhat commoditized, it seems to me. So, so having things to be easy makes is important, because you don't know who your operator is going to be, and you know, and I don't know, is that right? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, it's a great question, Carl. Yeah, you're right. It's very, very much become a commoditized market. You know, it's a great way to sort of, you know, almost be rounding off this session with, you know, people. It's, you know, it really is just this whole commoditization in the luminaire market that, you know, we're all having to deal with and work with on a daily basis. But, you know, do we still see that there's going to be an industry growing? Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's people's, yeah, and is that going to come from innovation? Well, people's perception of innovation differs. You know, for what most people claim is innovation, I really see is just evolution. You know, we've simply been exchanging newer technologies such as a light source, you know, with some added benefits, but it still does a similar job. You know, some of us have been cramming more and more features into fixtures, such as extra gobos, extra prisms, you know, which is interesting, though, because when we speak to the designers, it's very questionable at times if it's really required, because they actually find it hard to use them. You know, 80% of their shows, they don't access 90% of what's in the light. You know, And truly, a lot of main aspects around any of these luminaires hasn't really changed much at all, since they were first conceived. For me, it has become a commodity item, which unfortunately at times gets driven by price, and it sometimes feels like a race to the bottom rather than a race to add true value to a product. But I and our entire company, as I know yourself, really believes that there's definitely room for innovation and growth. But innovation just based on technologies will not give true value or growth to these products. Usually it just adds cost. There may be a need, and maybe you don't need them, and maybe people just don't want to pay for it. Innovation that drives growth, I think, is going to come from other areas and not just constant loading of features, exchanging technologies. It will be also how we wrap the entire product offering up. What can we add in terms of real value to the segments these products are focused for? And it's not just how many extra gobos can we load in the light this time. I think growth will come also from educating both ourselves and the wider market. I'm very much for self-educating. I spend a lot of time studying and a lot of time, reading, looking at new technologies, and and understanding as much as I can the market. And some of it's really simple. Like at the moment, we're looking at IP protection seems to be a very in thing in fixtures. But what level of protection is really required for the application it's being used for? Because once we understand that completely and actually can help the market understand that completely, maybe we're not going to see compromises in the fixtures like we're currently seeing, again, like trying to run a silent fixture with this size and weight output ratio being very, very off kilter. It just doesn't align very well at the moment. We also need to be looking and embracing new technologies. I know you're a fan of new technologies, Kyle.
Yeah, definitely.
Such as like the Internet of Things. This can change the way we communicate with our products at so many levels. We've barely touched it. I'm really lucky. In fact, everybody who works in this company are really lucky because we're within the Signify group. And this, we are the world leaders in the application of connected light. And which is far outside of what we currently deem as connected light in the entertainment industry. We will start leveraging on this more and more. It'll add value to our products and our partners, with new services and new value-added benefits. That's the main thing we have to do, is deliver value and benefits in all of these products, because that's what drives innovation and growth. And as these, there's also all these new platforms very much in their infancy stages, but here in the entertainment world, that's what we embrace first and foremost. As a lighting industry, we are still the pioneers in taking new technology and pushing it to the absolute limit, usually breaking it, then dialing it back a bit, to work for the art, because what we do is art. I build lights that are used to be art or create art. And I've been looking at things, such as augmented reality interfaces. It's starting to play a bigger role in the general world around us, far more than just wearing a headset connected to your phone or a games console. It's integrated into our smartphones. It's used in my middle son's elementary school as part of his learning experience. He was showing me only the other day the stuff that they do, and I was like, I didn't even have a pen and pad when I was at his age at school. We had to write with pencils. There he is with a computer and augmented reality devices as part of his learning experience. My son also showed me how it's even integrated into search engines. So when looking up actual factual data, if any of you have not tried it, just go to Google after this call and Google shark facts and then click on the 3D link. It's amazing. It truly is. And we're starting to see in our world some of the software systems producing pre-visualization based experiences. Some of these are starting to see interactions with this augmented world, but for me, there's still a question yet to be answered, and maybe next time when we do this call, I'll have an answer for it. And that is how or can or even should this new technology start to become integrated into future fixtures in the entertainment luminaires? Is there a way we combine this in? That's to me the focus of innovation for us.
Well, thanks, Martin. I'm really excited to see where things go and how things change. It's a really, I think, an interesting time where there's a whole lot of should say untapped potential in the lighting world. Seems to me. Um,
I've got a good question here, Carl. Just come up.
Okay.
It'd be good to answer. Yeah, this must be around the smart color. So what someone asked is that function, is it fixture based or console specific? It's not console specific. That's the great thing about this smart color control. It works on every single console the same way. So it's not just tied to one console. And as we know, CYM color mixing has been around a lot longer than most other color mixing for it. So consoles are very, very integrated into the way that works with their automatic chases, color presets, and effects engines. So yes, if whoever asked that question, thank you. And it is not console specific. It's actually built into the fixture as a mode.
All right, that's great. Thank you for that, Martin, for the insight there. And generally, thank you for taking the time today to come out and speak with us. Before we go, we're close to the end of time here, but before we go, is there any sort of final thoughts or anything else you'd like to say before we sign off here?
But no, I think it's an exciting time for us all at the moment in terms of new products and developments and what we're releasing across all our brands. You will all start seeing a lot of new products soon. It's a shame to not be in Frankfurt this week actually launching those products. That's where Kyle and myself would have been, probably doing this type of interview stood live on a show floor. All I can say is hopefully we will get through this very quickly, and we're all back. It's here working from home. I seem to be very lucky. I've thrown my children out of the playroom and I've fitted lights in the playroom so I can actually carry on working and testing. But that's really sort of everything from me, I think, Kyle.
Yeah, so thanks so much, and thank you everyone that came in and attended this event with us while we are all here at the house. And I would be not doing my job at the end of these things if I didn't remind everyone to be sure you go online and follow us on our social media channels. You can find Vari-Lite and Strand Lighting everywhere on all the major channels: Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. So follow us if you don't. That's the best place to come hear about new things like this that we have going on, and all of our other events and different things that we have, and other announcements that may or may not be coming in the near future, from what it sounds like from Martin there. So you won't know about it if you don't follow Vari-Lite and Strand on our social media channels. And again, please stay tuned to our social channels and to look for that feedback form. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Goodbye. Thanks, Cal.